Well, there's been quite a lot of activity on the currency side of things over in Nigeria. Speculation that the Central Bank of Nigeria might be coming in and being forced to depreciate the Naira further as oil receipts dwindle. What's your take on what's playing out there, and should the Central Bank be stepping in?
Yeah. Well, it's a very interesting turn of events. What we saw last week is that the central bank increased its dollar selling to the market quite substantially. Originally, I think they were hamstrung because their own dollar receipts had declined, and last week we saw them escalate the dollar selling to meet about 80-90% of demand in the twice weekly auction. And this brought stability back into the Naira. Mm-hmm. We saw it edging firmer against the dollar over the week, and I think this week it's continued. On Monday, the auction, they've met all of the demand in the auction again, $375 million that they sold, which matched all of the demand. And that has stabilized the currency. What's interesting, though, is at one stage it looked as though their reserve level was hampering their ability to match the demand. But through this last week and a half with the data that we've seen, reserves have basically stayed unchanged. And
exactly.
I think, and that has empowered them to increase their selling to the market.
Well, looking at things, I mean, certainly the strategy that the new central bank governor has adopted is very different to that of a former central bank governor, Chukwuma Soludo. I mean, where he deliberately depreciated the Naira in November last year by restricting the amount of dollars supplied to the auction market. This new management's looking to assure the market of the bank's capacity to actually meet demand at this stage of the game. But these continued fall in receipts that we're seeing in the oil sector, which accounts for about, what, 80% of forex receipts at this stage, has fueled speculation that the central bank may not be able to sustain, the level things at the level that it's been supplying, to the wholesale Dutch auction system.
That is a key concern. I mean, we saw, for example, that just from the excess crude account that they have, which is the rainy day savings account for the government, now not the Reserve Bank, but there the money has dropped down to $9.2 billion after a most recent dispersal of $2 billion. Mm-hmm. Now that started at $20 billion at the beginning of this year. That's a massive drawdown. The foreign exchange reserves were well over $60 billion in September last year. Mm-hmm. They're now $43 billion, right? So we're seeing these reserves decline. We're seeing the pressure on the system, and the reality is, as long as oil price stays low, but more particularly the oil production is the key problem for Nigeria. As long as they struggle to rebuild production in the local industry, they're going to struggle. At some stage, it has to feed through to the currency. Yeah. Now, that's why we saw the currency depreciate up to the 145 odd level. We then saw the currency again after Sanusi came into power or took over at the Reserve Bank. He allowed it to depreciate somewhat up to 155, mm-hmm. but now they've stepped in and agreed that they've liberalized the market to some extent. They haven't completely unwound it, but it steps in the right direction. You know, he's brought in some very good measures. Yeah. The market still needs to be liberalized more. The secondary market is still very liquid. Local banks can't hold many dollars, but it's headed in the right direction.
Having said that, then, what's your outlook for the Naira in the short term?
I think it'll still stay under pressure. Look, the recent increase in the oil price over the last month or so, 2 months, has helped. But as long as they battle with oil production, now I think oil production will improve as we go through the year because of this current amnesty process and the fact that there isn't a lot of disruption of oil production going on at the moment. It'll help improve oil production as we go through the rest of the year. But it's going to be a slow process, so I think there is still room for some weakness in the Naira, probably to 155, 160.